Yeah,
it's
well,
amazing.
thank you. Yeah, you're the first person to mention that. And she was a delight. They were all a delight to work with, but Rachel just so lovely.
Hi, Grant.
Hi, how you doing? Good.
I'm doing fine, and you?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying these Zoom chats and, wanting to help you guys as much as possible, trying to cram as much into the short space of time that we have.
I know it's a pleasure to talk to you and to it's just like figuring out all this work that the magic that you do with the costume.
Yeah.
It's amazing because it's magic
Thank
too.
you.
It's not just the effect. It's the everything that they go through is like it's amazing. So I think this time around is a little bit different because we have other movies from Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange already appears in other Marvel movies. How was like this process in this time around?
So Doctor Strange, at the end of Doctor Strange, wears this mask. He's supposed to upgrade to a master costume. So he went from this surgeon to a guy in kind of ordinary clothes traveling across the world trying to find this place, and then he goes through that process and ends up wearing the sort of camouflage robes. And so the disciple costume that he wore for the most part of that movie, at some point he was supposed to upgrade to master and have something that was more reminiscent of the comic books, but for some reason he ended up wearing that same costume in Infinity War and Endgame and Spider-Man 3. And so when we started prep on Multiverse of Madness, Kevin Feige was very, Sam Raimi was sort of dropped into the Marvel world, not knowing anything about the other movies and the other characters. So we had to kind of steer him into the idea that, which he's totally on board with. I mean, it's a delight to work for. But that he had to have a costume that was upgraded from Doctor Strange. So we made something that was more, I'm just going to call it more superhero. So in Doctor Strange, Alex Burns' costume, it was beautiful kind of robes, and I would just call them like the national costume of camouflage. And so I tried to move that forward and create something that was a lot more tailored and sort of having more kind of shoulder definition and more fitted through the body. And yeah, he still has kind of skirted tunics, but there's less of it, and sort of upgrade on the boots, leather cuffs rather than these sort of beautiful fabric ones, just created a bit more of a sort of warrior feel to him. Still wearing the same cloak. The cloak could never change because the cloak is a personality and it's a relic, and it has feelings. And so
yeah, I know.
And so there was certain things that we couldn't change or didn't want to change. The amazing opportunity was then, like in that movie, he kind of had one costume, and now in this one he was in the Defender costume in the cold opening. Then he was in the regular 616 world that we know from 28, 29 or 30 Marvel movies, because every Marvel movie is set in Earth 616. And then we had the opportunity then to have some fun creating the 838 world and the Sinister Strange costumes. So there were a number of different looks, and each one of them had its own process of big discussions and where it should go. And because the studio know more than I where things are going to continue in another movie or streaming process, that you don't always know where things are going to move on to next. So it's unlike other movies where as a costume design you'd just be talking to the director and probably getting approval from a producer and obviously the actors. But with Marvel, you're working with something that's just been set up now for so long and has so many facets to it that when you bring work into their world, it has to kind of, they have to be comfortable with, is it telling the right story of where that character is going to go in the future?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I see the magic is not just comes from the visual effects, comes from the costume design too, because you guys do all these details. It's amazing how turn out.
Well, here's the thing. I had something like the biggest crew I've ever seen ever. So when we came back after lockdown in July 20, we got a brand new script, and they suddenly introduced the Illuminati, and it was just like, hey, we had a whole movie and now we've got another movie, the Illuminati. You've suddenly got all these superhero costumes. And the thing about making very detailed costumes and getting them ready in time for filming is that you have a certain amount of money, but you have limited time, and in the end you can't buy yourself out of trouble because you've run out of time. So we were very lucky, or I was really lucky, that I had an incredibly talented in-house workshop. There was literally, well, the whole crew, including people looking after background, there was about 160 people. But there were so many people. There were people embroidering all day, dyeing fabrics, printing fabrics, working on computers to do 3D models, working on computers, creating fabric designs that would then go into screen printing. People, modeling things that, just so many people creating different aspects. And the amazing thing about that is that, unlike in LA where they have a vendor that might be working on a number of other productions, these people are all just working for me, and it's just getting that everything, they're exclusive and just working on the one project. But there's so many costumes, you just need so many people to get through that number of costumes, because we remade all the background at Camotage. It moved on so much from the first film with this sort of armored look, and Mordo had a brand new look. Doctor Strange had to have several new looks, and Scarlet Witch needed reinterpreting, because although they loved the WandaVision costume that Mayes Rebello designed and Jose Fernandez made in Los Angeles for WandaVision, they had to tell a different story. And the thing about costumes, as you know, is that they have to tell a story, which is sometimes easier with, I'm going to call them character costumes of some kind, but with these kind of fantasy costumes and superhero, sometimes it's hard to build in the character, but I think we got there. I mean, you just have to do a lot of fittings to get them to work so they can move in all the different action sequences, and the visual effects aren't having to pick up, too much work. And the lighting, so important, that when you spent so long dyeing something a color that you like and embroidering it and printing it and making it into a costume, and if you put it into a slightly dark room, it's just like, oh, well, that's a bit disappointing. But with John Matheson, even in the war room at Camotage, it was so beautifully lit. You could see all of Charlie Wood's production design set deck that was in, everything was just, I just had to thank him on a number of occasions, say thank you for making me look so good, because the visual effects and the lighting are very key in me being able to sort of maintain the look that we were hoping to get,
Yeah, I know. But there is one character that never appeared before, America Chavez. How was the approach like to create her? I love her jacket. So how was her approach?
We went through a lot of different ideas until Xochitl was cast, and maybe she would have been a bit older. And in the comics, I'm just going to say, some of the America's costumes are, quite provocative, but we were very mindful, and Victoria Alonso, producer, she has a teenage daughter, and she's has a similar background, so she wanted to make sure that the sort of Latino or Latinx kind of aspects were dealt with sort of tastefully and with sort of modesty. But the jacket was something that I'd seen in sort of fashion, but I had this idea that she was like a lot of kids, you know, and I used to do it too, where you might put so many pins on your coat because you're trying to say something, or you might, you know, take a Sharpie and start like drawing slogans on some of your clothing. And I remember doing that in my youth. And it's something that comes in and out of fashion too, you know, with Hilfiger taking and Ralph Lauren taking the American flag and doing so many things with red, white and blue. So because she's America and she's red, white and blue in the comics, we had to sort of keep the flag going, but at the same time with her sort of background, bring in Day of the Dead and their sort of Mexican sort of folklore art. And so Sam Raimi, the coat started to get very busy and quite distracting. And so he asked me to make the design more subdued. So all that poetry, you have to get really close to it to see all that sort of detail, because it's all quite faded. And because he wanted the star to be the key thing that was recognizable as America. That's her symbol. That's the portal that she creates. And then Doctor Strange sees the same star in the cold opening. He knows he's seen it before when he's in New York in 616. So the audience know that he's seen it before. So it was very important to, in the end, have that as a sort of thing that was the sort of key aspect. Yeah, I mean, Zoshio loved her costume, and yeah, it was kind of subtle, but the t-shirt again just appears like a sort of athletic grey plain t-shirt, but if you ever to get a chance to sort of zoom in or see it for real, there's so much detail in the print with snakes and skulls and Mexican folklore art and Day of the Dead and Portuguese witchcraft, and kind of, you know, she's a witch, so it has to have that
it's
kind
beautiful. Did with all the costumes. And there is another one that I want to mention, the Rachel McAdams, Christine's.
Yeah.
The way that she was, and the way that when she goes to a multiverse, she's a completely different costume for her, and it's amazing.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, you're the first person to mention that. And she was a delight. They were all a delight to work with, but Rachel was just so lovely. And she's been not married in real life, but she's been worn a wedding dress in 4 other movies, including a red one. And she said to me, this was just the best wedding dress that she'd had so far in any movie. So I'm just so happy that we were able to create something for her that was really flattering. And because she had just had a baby before she started work with us, so, you know, literally working with her, dealing around her sort of 3-month-old baby was quite a challenge, and probably not so interesting for your viewers, but you can appreciate you have to take into consideration a lot of things in that area.
I know.
The Illuminati costume, that kind of it said Scrubs in the script, but with all Ian Joyner's team and the VizDev guys, we ended up creating something that was a sort of balance somewhere between I was surprised how superhero she became in the costume.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had it was in the script that she wore this lab coat, the Doctor Strange reference to it. And I'd taken this sort of, it was a lab coat, but to make it a bit more futuristic, it has a kind of print on top of it. So it's not just like a cotton drill lab coat they would sort of normally use. It has sort of printed texture to it. But I then quickly did a deal with Rachel and said, we have to lose that coat, because we have to, your kind of one of the heads of the Illuminati in that scientific area, you are the head of medical studies in the Illuminati. So we have to make sure that your position is not taken down. And even Dr. Strange was quite derisory by calling her like lab coat. So we came up with the idea that she would actually remove it in action in order to rescue America from the plexiglass box was there. So that was, sometimes you don't win these battles, and the producer, the director say, oh no, she's got to keep the coat on all the time. And sometimes you don't win them, but that was one that everyone was on board with. And then when she took the coat off, they actually couldn't believe that the scrub suit was also then blended somewhere into a kind of superhero costume by herself. Yeah, that's
why I called my attention, because I was like, oh my God, this is so different when you see her before, when you see her in other movies, and now you see her like almost a superhero. Amazing.
I mean, I mean, I did give her a bit of a heel, which there were some, comments about, because, surgeons and people in those environments, all doctors wear sneakers all day because they're on their feet for 18 hours a day. But I just wanted to create that sort of slight business-like, she wasn't expecting trouble, right? She was just monitoring things in the Illuminati observation room. And so, she had a little bit of a heel. And I think that just sort of took the sort of, just without over amplifying it, just again, like you're appreciating, just added the superhero thing slightly, but the fact that she was on quite a modest heel, but not sneakers,
Exactly. It's this, like the all costume designer. I think you guys, as I said, you guys do magic, and I think it's amazing. All the, appreciate your time, appreciate the work that you do, and always, because
thank you so much.
Not just the actors or just the directors, is everything beyond that.
Yeah.
So, yes, I just want to thank you so much for your time. A pleasure to talk to you. Appreciate a lot of your time, and thank you so much.
Oh, not at all. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
If you like this video, don't forget to comment, to like, and subscribe to our channel right here.